Now, in this episode, I'm going to get into something that has always been a point of confusion for people with John and Tim. And that is when it comes to how to use your legs. I'm just going to say, for those who've experienced doing kicks with John and Tim, right, it's the wildest stuff. Now, John was very merciful when he did kicks with you, if you worked it with him, and would teach you how he was doing stuff. Now, Tim, on the other hand, Tim didn't like to pick his feet up. And I remember when I was first training with Tim, and Tim, would be doing stuff, and I always would ask him, I noticed, you don't kick, or you don't really do kicks. And he's like, yeah, his whole thing was, I just don't like to pick my feet up that much. It had nothing to do with whether he could kick well. He actually could kick extremely well. He can kick like a mule, trust me. There was just a preference he had. That was his own idiosyncrasy because he had long reach, and usually if he felt you in the body trying to lift your leg, he would just cut you off. He would just break your balance and then, punch a hole and you'd be done with it. So when it came to kicks, when I was working with Tim never lifted his feet high to kick. So Tim did a lot of low kicks when he would show you stuff. One of Tim's main things, though, of how he used his legs was to be able to step in, and he would use his knees in a manner where he would break your balance or limit where you could step. Now, for those who experienced it, because he taught me how he did it, before I even started working with John, learning how John does kicks, Tim was actually showing me how he used his legs. Then, of course, I got in there with John, and it was like I never learned anything. But anyway, so Tim, when he used his legs, if he was closing distance, he liked to use his knees to be able to break your balance, redirect, or whatever he's going to do. If he had to pick his foot up to kick, it was always a low kick, and it literally felt like, like you rolled a log into your leg, some Roman weapon where they set it on fire with Greek fire and roll it down the hill, and you just got to get the hell out of the way, right? And when he kicked, it was always relatively low. Well, I want to point out, though, Tim could kick a little high. He never really kicked above the waist, but it doesn't mean he couldn't lift his leg and kick you. It's just that he didn't want to do that because he preferred not to. The other reason was, I think is, in class, he didn't want to get somebody to panic because if you panicked with it or, you pissed him off, he's just going to break your hip. When Tim would lift his foot, I just kind of demonstrated, it'd be off the ground that fast. He'd be like, yeah, sure, and boom, and it's over. And you feel like you got hit with a freaking bat. But more importantly, and this is something that I think I know. He learned from John, and I'll get into how John used kicks in a minute. The point was, when Tim would use his legs and his kicks, he loved also to give you a nice little Charlie horse right in the sciatic nerve, because Tim was like the Terminator. He had this great understanding of the body. And he would literally just give you a touch, and you could feel like an electric shock go right down your leg. And so those little subtle differences in how he used his legs was he didn't like picking his feet up. And because he didn't like picking his feet up, if he had to use his legs, usually it was something like a knee as he moved in on you to break your balance. If he was going to kick you, it was going to be low. It was going to feel like you get hit with a baseball bat. Or he would sweep you off your feet, sweep your leg, and then hit you. You just break your balance, sweep your leg. He wouldn't sweep your leg because he was trying to put you down. He would sweep your leg to break your balance, to hold you in a position where you were off balance so he could hit you. And the reason he would do that, I asked him one time, he showed me how he did that. I said, why would you hold me up? He said, because I want to hit you, and if you fall on the ground, then I got to go to deal with it on the ground. He said, I'd rather just be able to hit you and end it right there. I said, okay, that makes sense. And I remember the first time when Tim showed me what he could do with his kicks. I'm kind of digressing here. I said, well, what if I throw a kick? He said, well, I don't know. First of all, somebody who tells you do anything you want, it's already a setup. I'm just telling you. It took me a while to figure out. Anytime Tim or John said, oh, no, you just do whatever you want. Okay, here's what's going to happen. They're already waiting for you to do something. You're already set up. The moment the words came out of their mouth, do whatever you want, right? So he said, Tim, go do whatever you want. I'm not going to do it to you. And he swept my leg and pushed me from the front. And, I kind of came up, I was like levitating between the heaven and earth. And then he caught me so I wouldn't hit my head. And it kind of, that was his way of showing me what's what. And Yeah, this is what I'll do. I'll just levitate you and drive your head through, the cement and be done with it. So now John, on the other hand, when John used his feet, I'm just telling you, nobody in the system could use their feet like John or kick like John. I'm not saying people couldn't kick hard, because there's some guys, Tommy Barnett comes to mind, and George Piacente. If those guys kicked you, your ass stayed kicked. And they were like Tim. They could hit like getting kicked by a mule, for real. And Mike Watson the same way. He fucking kicked you, excuse the language, but if he kicked you, you stayed kicked. But John, when he used his feet, he wasn't just kicking. His legs were like a second pair of hands. It was crazy. I used to call sometimes, refer to how John used his feet. They're like monkey feet. It was crazy. He would bring his foot up. You'd be like this close. And he would bring his foot up and hit you. And his legs would just come out. And he could just control you with his feet. Sometimes when he would get a little playful, he would be moving like this. And he would just be doing this. And he'd step back and he would hit you. And when I saw him and felt him doing that, I said, I want to be able to kick like that. And I would ask him, why is he kicked that way? And he says, well, I don't want to give people a chance to get in the fight. And it disorients them, plus I want to hurt them. Now, he would never hurt me when he was doing it. Not that he couldn't. But the other thing was, it reinforced the importance of why you got to do the leg exercises, why you got to do the balance exercises. So when he would have me doing, puppeteering, Tim would have me doing puppeteering, hacky sack, stuff like that. And people say, well, why do you do those? Or, you do the ninja walk or you do the vacuum walk. People say, well, why do you do that stuff? It's because, so that when I need to pick my foot up and use my hands, see what's going on here, and I need to do that, I don't have to think about that action with my body because I've already habituated that ability where it's just something I can do. So when I move with people, I'm always careful whenever I'm doing leg work with people to help them because it can be disorienting. I always start off slow, kind of like how John started with me. And how John started with me is like, don't use your hands, he says, just move with me. And we would do stuff like this. And we would even flow with the legs. And while we were doing this leg flow, it was kind of free. We weren't kicking per se, but we would place our feet in positions like there. See how Frank cut my leg and he checked me. Up, right? And we would just fool around like that. And what he was doing was he was teaching me how to control my equilibrium while controlling my leg. Because John used to say it all the time. Your legs, they move you around all day long. Your legs already have enough strength, everybody's leg, to kick like a mule anyway. So he would use his feet in that fashion. So you can see what Frank's doing here. He's even got his hands in his pocket. But because, no, you're fine. Put your hands right. You're fine. But because of the control he has over his body, he's able to use his foot in a way. Whereas in the microsecond in a real situation, I got to overcome all that while he's also using his hands and hitting me. That's why I wanted to leave his hands in his pocket. So you can see that's not an easy thing to deal with. One of the things I see today in MMA, and I love it, is you're now starting to see a lot of low calf kicks, right? Especially the Muay Thai guys. They're lighting people's legs up, setting people's legs on fire. And the reason why I like seeing that is because it reinforces the reasons why I teach people, like I'm here, and all of a sudden that boom, to do things like that. Now remember, those guys are doing a sport. So there's a lot of also, while they're trying to win a fight, there's some mutual respect there. That's why they're not kicking each other in the Achilles tendon. You'll notice that. That just shows the level of skill and control those guys have. As you start doing this stuff, and I'm here, and Frank, especially with a shoe on, he starts kicking me with the, the point of the toe in the Achilles tendon. It's going to be a problem. So John would use his feet like this, and literally his feet were like a second pair of hands. One of the things I'll just demonstrate this, that John used to do is he would catch your leg and hold it up in a position, and he wouldn't let you put and he would be hitting you. And the reason was because he had crazy balance. Now the other part of it is too, and I want people to understand this, John had incredible flexibility and elasticity in his hips. I don't understand how he did. I don't think nobody does. I mean, I'm talking like almost like contortion stuff. I can't even do it. John would be like this close to you, and he would take this leg, bring it up, and he would kick you in the body. It was like one of those outward kind of almost crescent kicks. I don't know how he did it. One of his favorite things would be this close, and he would bring his knee up, and you've seen him do this in videos, and he would just, he used to do it to me all the time, and I would like, as soon as I would grab him or do something like this, and that knee would come and he would just nail me, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It made no sense because on this angle, you expect this, not boom, and then he would hit you, and and I said, why would you go there? I would just ask. I mean, not that it didn't hurt. He said, well, I don't want to hit you in the balls. I said, oh, I appreciate that. The point is, he did whatever he wanted. One of the other ones he would do is, it makes me laugh because he did like to me. He'd be in here like this, and that foot would go out, and you think he's going to take a step, and he would bring it right back and whack you in the back of the leg. Now, he wouldn't hit you hard, and he always hit you in the calf or behind the knee. Never hit you low in the ankle because he knew he would hurt you. And what he would do is he would just hit that leg, scoop it. He wouldn't hook it. He would scoop it back, and then he would hit you. Absolutely amazing ability. It was just unbelievable the stuff he would do. I could go on and on about the stuff he did with his feet. But the point is that it reinforced, at least in my mind, when he was doing that stuff, the importance of doing the balance exercises. In probably an upcoming episode, I'll talk about some things that he also did with me and Tim that really helped me kind of develop this kind of feel where you can move like the Matrix.